Three, two, one.
Hi, welcome. I'm Mary Crowley, and this is The Art Show on PEG TV, which does a huge service for this community. That's a plug for them. We're on to talk about the Chaffee today, and I have as my guests Meg Barrows, who is the executive director, and Rick Twigg, who is the chairman of the board of directors. They are articulate about what's happening there. They are enthusiastic, passionate, I would say, about what's happening there. But before I give them the floor, I'd just like to make a few points. The Chaffee has been going for a long time. On this easel is a work by Karen Seward. I guess it's not going to show, so I'll have to hold it up. Karen Seward has been a Chaffee artist for a long time. She and many others have taken classes there. She was a sip and dip instructor recently, and Meg or Rick will explain what that's about. I have up here a few pieces by longstanding members of the Chaffee. This is the only thing I could find at home that Ann McFerrin has done. She won a competition when the Christmas tree at the Capitol was from Vermont. And this painting, quite large and wonderful, absolutely wonderful, is now in the office of the director of the Forest Service in Washington, D.C. And you can see it. You can see how wonderful it is. It's just lovely. Then this last piece that I brought is by Jim Abatel, who is a wonderful artist, an incredibly well-trained artist who does everything under the sun. He could do realistic portraits if he wanted to, but that's generally not what he does. He combines different kinds of things. This is at our house. I love it. Love, love, love it. All right. Art is a response to life. And I brought a couple of things that I did in response to how I felt. This is how I felt after the massacre at Newtown Elementary School. Now this isn't going to show well. Is that level? Doesn't matter. This is my response to the horror of a male, Adam Lanza, going into an elementary school and massacring children and teachers. It was beyond belief. December of 2012. That's what artists do. They respond to life, whether it's joy or sorrow, pain or happiness. This is another one. It says, "Women arise, as you did to form MAD, form MAN, Mothers Against Massacre." That's probably not going to happen because I'm not going to try to make it happen, but MAD was successful, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So artists respond to their environment, whether it is a massacre in a school or it is sunflowers. A few years back, I did sunflowers for quite a long time. And one of the reasons, I never seem to be able to do this right. One of the reasons I did sunflowers was I was asked if I would do a painting demonstration for a Chaffee fundraiser. I brought this. These are giclée prints, which are in fact better than the original watercolors because they will not fade for 100 years. How did they know that? I'm not sure. They know it. All right, now it's your turn. What would you like to talk about?
You know, Mary, you've given me so many different openings. I'm not sure where to begin, but
you'll figure it out.
I will figure it out. First, I'd like to just briefly touch on the fact that the three artists, Karen, Ann, and Jim, are all active juried artist members of the Chaffee.
Yes.
And as Mary mentioned, Karen and Ann are both instructors at our bi-weekly sip and dip classes. And that's a class where one of our juried artists comes in. Usually they give us the painting. They'll be leading people in a week before so we can have that up as an advertisement on Facebook and our website. Sometimes that doesn't happen and people come in and are introduced to what they'll be painting when they walk into the downtown gallery. But both of these women, and also Jennifer Wiegers, Palmer Wiegers, who's done many of the murals in Rutland, is another one of our sip and dip instructors. And it's a 2.5-hour class that leaves people with a finished piece that they get to take home and share with their family. Jim will actually be involved in one of our exhibits coming up this fall that's titled Fantasy. I was recently in Jim's studio, and Jim's studio was overwhelming, both it's a historical look at his entire body of work he's developed throughout his life. I think the fact that he's very comfortable working in a mixed medium reflects the years he spent as an industrial art teacher. So he's very comfortable working with students and very comfortable using anything from Q-tips and paper cups to, as Mary showed, cracked glass and stones from a riverbed. He's just this pure artist, and he sees artistry in everything he does.
Yes.
It's the book, The Artist Way.
In this area, there's nobody like him.
Yes. You know, the pieces you brought in to share regarding the massacre, artists respond to both the happy and sad. They respond to all emotions and to our environment. So on that vein, I'd like to talk about our current exhibit at the Chaffee, which is our annual photography contest, and this year it has 3 parts to it. In the paper, this lovely spread in People and Places is about one of those 3 segments, and it is called Photo Voice, and it was brought to us through Neighbor Works, who worked with 9 residents of the northwest quadrant of Rutland City, which is an area of the city we all know has been impacted by a lot of violence and drug issues. And as a result of that, we now have Project Vision, which is a dedicated group of professionals and community members who are trying to do positive things to help change that neighborhood, which it reflects on all of us. The ripples come out from the stone when they're thrown in the pond. So these are some positive ripples to help get rid of the negative. So I encourage people to come to the Art Center on Main Street Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They'll get to see Photo Voice. The other 2 sections.
What are the dates you're talking about?
It's Thursday and Friday from noon to 6, and Saturday from noon until 5, and the exhibit is up through July 25th.
All right, it's on now.
It's on now.
Okay.
And next Friday.
We are taping on the 19th of June.
So it's up and going now. Next Friday, for those who might see it this coming week, next Friday, June 26th, will be the awards ceremony for the photo contest, which is another segment inside this year's photo exhibit. So I encourage the public to stop by this weekend right up until next Friday at 4, and you can vote on your favorite photo in the photo exhibit portion of the overall exhibit, the photo contest portion of the photo exhibit. It's a People's Choice Award, so it's nice to see.
It's fun.
What's valued by the audience.
It makes the people who go into the Chaffee to see the show look at the pictures more carefully.
Yes.
I think it's,
The third part of the exhibit is one of, brought to us by one of the colleges that we have a liaison with, and that's Green Mountain College. And it's a whole body of work that was done by a group of students who were sent in, and it's called Uncovering Rutland. And there are some really poignant photographs, very powerful, meaningful photographs that talk about positives and possible negatives here in the city, and it's from a college student's eye, so I really appreciate what they were able to do. And when Mary talks about the prints lasting 100 years, you can appreciate the different types of digital photography that the 3 different segments of the overall photo exhibit present. And there's all different levels of being able to digitally produce photography. And one of our sponsors is Phototech, and they were talking about that in some depth on Friday. And briefly, I'd like to say thank you to Phototech and the Rutland Herald and Giancola, because sponsors are what allow the Chaffee as a nonprofit art center. It's what sponsors are an important element that make our exhibits, our ideas for exhibits, an actual reality, because the exhibits are free and open to the public.
Yes.
And with that,
they are free and open to the public, but there is always a place where you can leave a $20 bill, or even a $1 bill if that's what you have.
Always. And quarters, we count
or
quarters.
$100 bills.
Yes, at openings, sometimes that's what people leave, and we appreciate all of it, whether it's coins from a child or dollars from an adult. It all adds up and helps us keep the doors open to the public.
Right. Now, Rick, do you want to talk about your particular passion right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, Meg and I got started with the Chaffee, and since then we've begun to show people what art can be in the community. We've done it through the Art in the Park festivals that we've done, through the murals that have been done, through sculptures being planted around the community, to paintings in businesses. But that's not the be-all and end-all of what art should be for us in this community. If you think about what art is, at least from my perspective, it's all about getting in touch with your feelings and expressing yourself creatively. It's the one thing that's left for humanity. If in this digital age we're turning over so much to computers, and the next 10 years is just going to be such a much more dramatic change in that regard, the one thing we can hold on to is our creative human side. So the vision that we've come up with for the Chaffee going forward is to take the Chaffee Mansion itself and turn it into an arts development center. And by that we mean connecting the community inside of the Chaffee, using the Chaffee as a tool for the community to connect with itself through its own creative outlets. And we are taking a very broad, expansive view of what art means now. It's not just paintings, it's not just pottery, your traditional forms of art. It's also music, culinary capability, poetry, comedy, and furniture making, fabric, all of those things. One of the areas that we're targeting right now is digital art. We're trying to create a space where people can come in, and we have a couple of board members who are heavy into this business, who would work with young kids, young adults, and adults alike with this tool, this digital art development center, and allow people to be creative with digital artistry. So that's one avenue by which we mean an art development center. But the other aspect to an art development center can also be inviting the community in to use the space for its own purposes. It might be a business conference, or a nonprofit might need a boardroom meeting. It may be that you have a wedding that you want to plan. Or that
I went to a wedding there once. It was wonderful.
Well, we just had one 2 weeks ago.
We just, two Fridays ago, we had a lovely 85 people in attendance.
This is a
event.
beautiful old mansion built in the 1890s. It has tremendous rooms. You could even have architecture, artistry classes. We're building on the concept of what we do with Sip and Dip, which is going fabulously. Every other week, over 30 people are showing up, and that's wonderful, but that's just a start. So taking that space and making it usable and viable for the community at large and for art is it's my passion. I want to see us have a vibrancy in this community that invites people from all over the country and the state to say, Rutland has something for me to stop on my way wherever it is I'm going. Or maybe not just stop, but realize it's a wonderful place to live. If you tie in the carving studio in West Rutland and the Paramount in the middle and this art development center on Main Street at the mansion, and then everything in between, Castleton Gallery, our own little gallery in downtown, and all the other little spaces, you begin to see an artistic, cultural vibrancy that we're just beginning to scratch at now. So if you take a look at the mansion, what does it need? Because none of this stuff comes for free. We may be offering things for free, but the reality is behind the scenes it costs money. And as board president, I have to say to you, we need some help. And that's what I'm here to talk about. My passion is I need your help to do these other things for the community to have a tool to express itself culturally. So with that said, first and foremost, we need money to get this digital art center going. That's going to run us about 15 grand. We just managed to put in a bathroom that's handicap accessible that makes the downstairs accessible. But in order to use some of the rest of the facility, we need an elevator, and we need another staircase on the backside. I don't have a price for that yet, but I'm sure it's going to be expensive. So look for us to come to you later. And the one thing that we could really use right now that would make the space much more viable, especially for dinners and conferences and weddings, is a culinary kitchen. That's probably on the order of 15 grand as well. So we're looking for sponsors for both.
Unless there is a business or there are businesses that want to contribute a refrigerator,
they would be sponsors.
For instance.
I have one in mind. I'm coming to see them probably today. But it is those kinds of activities or those kinds of needs for the Chaffee itself. We also have a long-term vision. There's a barn out back. That barn used to be a part of the Chaffee Mansion and property. And that barn could become a big dirty arts space for the community to make use of. And by dirty arts, we mean like pottery, fabric making, furniture making. We're not talking about actually producing product from those. We're talking about the community coming in and engaging have you ever thought maybe I'd love to refinish a piece of furniture that I have? Well, come on over. We'll go through that with you. It's that kind of activity that if you can think big, people will come. And it doesn't take a whole lot to get started, but we do need some help. We do need people to be engaged with us. So that's the vision. It's where we want to go. And we're reaching out to people and talking with them. We had GMP, a representative of GMP and NeighborWorks come in yesterday to take a look at our upstairs, the third floor of the Chaffee
think
Mansion.
the third floor has many possibilities.
Well, the first thing that has to happen up there is to insulate it and drywall it. It is a big space. You could easily
huge.
pit 50 to 60 people
It was
around
the
a
servants'
conference
quarters.
table.
I love
Well,
the history of the Chaffee and understanding
Yes.
that a family lived there and knowing a bit
Well,
about
and
that.
it wasn't just the servants' quarters. It also served as the children's playroom.
Oh, did it? Oh.
So the children went up,
Interesting.
out of sight, out of mind.
Yes, right.
So
Go upstairs.
don't interrupt Daddy. He's got his study. So they were up with the maids on the
All
third floor
right.
in that large area. So it was also the children's playroom
Okay.
and used as a little bit of a music room.
And for those of you who've never seen it, a children's playroom in the Chaffee's view back in the 1900s, it's the size of most people's houses.
But George Thrall Chaffee was an amazing man, and when George Thrall Chaffee built something, he built it to last. George Thrall Chaffee was also the major person behind having the Playhouse, which we all know as the Paramount Theater, become part of downtown Rutland.
Yes.
And if you're in downtown Rutland and you're on Center Street and you see the Paramount Theater, if you look about 20 feet down at the first floor level, you'll see the word Chaffee in big gold letters. So his name is still there in downtown Rutland. But it's no small irony to me that the two buildings that host culture and arts in our city were both buildings created by George Thrall Chaffee, a very passionate man in his day.
And they're both exquisite buildings.
They're beautiful.
Mr. Chaffee traveled with his family. And so there are many, many styles of architecture in there. There could be a small book written on what's in there and at the Paramount.
When we started the renovations under the Save America's Treasures grant 2.5 years ago, we had a couple of cleaning weekends. And people who come into the mansion now are treated to the fact that the chandelier that has always hung in the front hallway the whole time, the whole 54 years the Rutland Area Art Association has worked out of that premise. The glass globes, the Venetian glass globes that he purchased and had incorporated into the chandelier are now back on the chandelier. But the Italian tile on all of the fireplaces, yes, you can tell he was a world traveler. And the fact that Rotella's Lumber was back in the day Chaffee and Sons Lumber and Feed. The fact that he had a lumber yard is all you have to do is look at the parquet floors and you know that he had access to the premier lumber of the day. And the artisans that he employed for over 4 years talked to the community art center that we're trying to provide people, a place for people to come and exercise their creativity and leave feeling good about the product they make. To go back to what Rick was talking, the digital, 2 of our camps this summer are actually digital camps for children or are focused on computers. This coming week we're offering one on photography and graphic design. And we'll talk about the history of photography and where it's come from and graphic design. And I'm even pleased to be able to share with students a portfolio of a gentleman who passed away almost 20 years ago. But he was a graphic designer back in the day when everything was done by hand. And I think it's important for students now who are learning and have the joy of being able to be on a computer where it's very easy if you make a mistake to start and do it over again, to appreciate how what they can accomplish in an hour on a computer, someone else used to give 8 or 16 hours. And if you had to redo it, it meant starting from scratch and doing it. It's like, even talking about a typewriter versus typing on a computer to a student. I recently had one of our members bring in a typewritten letter to me. And I sat and I stared at it because even my generation can appreciate it. We took typing classes in high school.
Yes.
Computers were introduced to us, some of us in college or just when we left, and we've adapted completely to computers now.
We have.
Our Sip and Dip class by this fall will be offering some digital Sip and Dip classes for adults. And the idea behind that is to help people understand how to do basic editing and archiving of their digital photography and even being able to add painting elements to their photographs.
So Mary, when we talk about the Chaffees and the mansion, it's an expression, at least in that day and age, of wealth.
Yes.
And we have a lot of people with wealth today.
Yes.
Right? So I can't think of a better use for a building such as the Chaffee that's a remnant of a previous golden era of extreme wealth, to the present where we have another golden age of extreme wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yes.
building is now being
That's
used.
an interesting parallel.
That building is now being used to broaden an outreach into the community that goes beyond people who can afford these classes that we're talking about, but also through scholarships, we're being able to provide those opportunities to people who can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So Velco being our sponsor, primary sponsor for scholarships at the summer camps this year. That's where kids in areas that Project Vision would be most concerned with can have opportunities in the artistic world as well, helping them to broaden their concept of what their future might be like. How much better can it get? I mean, think about that. And it's an object lesson to those of you who might consider yourself wealthy, especially wealthy in this community, that supporting this kind of activity, I can't think of a better way for you to use your money. You don't need a big house, but if you have one, give up a little bit. Be a part of what it takes to make a difference in this community and by extension the world. The mansion can be that tool, and that's what my
Yes.
passion is
Yes.
about.
No,
I
I
do
felt
that.
the same way when I was on the board. I've always loved the mansion. And I just want to mention something that we didn't think about when I was on the board. There are people who have homes here who are based in Boston or New York or Philadelphia or Washington, but they come here in order to have a sort of slower pace. There's no reason why they couldn't be a part of this community while they're here, a part of the Chaffee, if we reached out to them.
And we do have members now who do not reside here in Rutland County or even inside the state of Vermont. And I appreciate and value those people and would like to see that grow. You know, our goal is to have 100 at 1,000 and 1,000 at 100 and see the membership grow to 1,100. That will not involve just people here inside Rutland County.
And maybe 1 at 1,000,000.
With that campaign, we are over the 500 mark, and that's partly due to the amount of student memberships that we have involved. But we're constantly looking for new members and recruiting new
Well, there's
members.
nothing like student memberships. I
No.
mean, if someone is going to the Chaffee now, then hopefully, if that particular child stays here as an adult, that person will become involved.
Stays here, or even if they move away and they reside in New York City or Boston, Chicago, Shanghai, wherever they go to reside, if they leave this city with warm memories, and some of those memories are associated with the chances they had to both pursue their own creative outlets and enjoy other people's artistic talents, then that ties them back to Rutland. It ties them back to wanting to see an organization like the Rutland Area
Yes,
Art
right.
Association continue to thrive. The Rutland Area Art
Stephen
Association.
Remington was a student at Rutland High School, and he wanted to be in one of my art classes, but he hadn't signed up, so he came in late. I think it was the first day of classes. And he said, I want to be in this class. And I said, well, there's not a place to sit. There's nothing. I had a little bitsy art room at that point. And he said, I'll work on the floor. And I said, okay. So he worked on the floor. And he went on to Hampshire. He went on to New York City, and now he is successfully pursuing a career as an artist. He's like Jim Abatel. He does a number of different things. And he's successful.
Good example.
Yeah, it
Good
is.
example. And you know, the Art Center, to do the renovations 2.5 years ago, opened up the downtown gallery. It was never seen as the long-term investment that it has become, but we're thrilled 2.5 years later to still be operating out of 2 locations and being able to offer exhibits in 2 locations continuously throughout the year. It opens up our opportunities to bring in artists from outside the community and to offer a wider spectrum of exhibits than the organization was able to in the past. We've closed the downtown gallery for the last few weeks, and it will reopen July 10th. The reason for it being closed is that there are renovations happening, thanks to Mark Foley's allowing us to tear down a wall When we reopen, we will have the cube.
Why don't you just put that in front of you
Put
so that you
this in
can
front of me.
show
Okay.
it? Yeah.
So the cube, which will be a new permanent contemporary art gift shop in the back half of the downtown gallery.
That's a zingy graphic.
Isn't
Who
it?
did that?
Chaffee Malillo and Bonnie Baird.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Chaffee Malillo worked with Bonnie Baird on this graphic, and
You
Bonnie
have to
Baird
see it close up and personal in
and
order to
Julie
really
Fredette,
appreciate it.
Julie Fredette worked on the idea. We talked about in exhibition committee, which is one of the most active committees right now with the Chaffee. They help work on jurying in artists and the overall exhibition schedule for each year. And we talked about ways that we could increase revenue streams for the downtown and increase foot traffic to the exhibits. And so we decided to create a larger gift shop, and Mark Foley allowed us to tear down a wall to make a larger space so that we could do that.
Okay.
When the cube opens, it will be in conjunction with an exhibit called Metamorphosis. And Metamorphosis, to keep in our theme of love, is all about the love of change. And it features the work of Stephen Proctor, who's a gentleman from southern Vermont, who makes these beautiful earthenware vessels that are anywhere from 2 to 5.5 feet tall. And Patrick Farrow, who most people here in Rutland know because of his sculpture that sits in Depot Park called The Leash. And Patrick and his wife Susan lived here in Rutland for, I think, about 15 years before they moved to Castleton, where he had his last home and studio. Patrick passed away about 7 years ago, so we're really thrilled to be working with Susan and her
3
daughters
minutes.
to bring his work to out to the community again. And then the last person is Pedra Bromhall, who lives here in Vermont, and he's a sculptor. She now works in digital design, and each of these people has a significant body of work that together represents metamorphosis. So it's a metamorphosis of our gallery, as well as how they've gone through metamorphosis in their own lives for a variety of reasons. So
All right.
we encourage you to join us. The 17th will be the actual opening for that exhibit.
Interrupting, I'm going to put on this hat, which, oh wait, I better do it this way. There are lots of ways to wear this hat. This hat came from London because my husband said when we were in London visiting Chris Crowley and his family, well, you have to have a hat for the Derby party. And I don't like to shop. Anyway, we went to Debenhams, and the hats were, you know the Brit hats for Ascot and
They're amazing.
and Kate and Will's wedding?
Yes, yes.
Well, it was a hoot, just a hoot. So anyway, I have this hat, which is not a hat that I will wear frequently, unless I want to become more eccentric than I am. But in any case, the Kentucky Derby Party will take place again in 2016,
Yes,
the
it will.
fundraiser. And you have 2 minutes.
The
And I
same-
have to say goodbye.
The save the date is already up on the website, and I encourage people to visit the website, chaffeeartcenter.org, to learn more about our classes, current and future exhibits, and even the Kentucky Derby, and to even read a list of current board members and some of our juried artist members. And I want to give Rick a chance to say final words.
Dare to change through your vision of the future. And I believe that vision needs to involve the creative arts, and it needs to be broadly based where everybody can participate, and it's only going to happen if the community, and especially those with the resources to contribute, do. And that's what I'm here for. That's my job, it's my role, it's my passion, it's my belief.
I have shivers
There you
down my spine.
And
That's my vision. It always has been my vision, but I don't know. When I was on the board, it didn't seem to come together, and so
well, you know,
I left, but I'm so happy.
A lot has changed both inside the Art Center building and outside. Everyone can see the beautiful paint job that happened
Yes.
last summer. Magic Brush did a fantastic job. In closing, I'd like to say that, you know, it's both the financial contributions and sponsorships, but it's also in-kind contributions that we receive many, many generous in-kind contributions, and the thousands, literally over 2,000 hours of volunteer effort that happens on behalf of the Chaffee every year. And some of that's performed by both high school and college interns, but a lot of that is performed by my board, who puts a lot of effort into making sure this organization
And other
continues
people.
and grows, and juried artists members, and some people even who aren't members yet, but they do
Well, for Art
give
in the
us
Park, you have all
Art
kinds
in
of
the Park.
volunteers,
So
right?
I ask people if they'd like to volunteer with us as a gallery sitter, even to come in and do a minor demonstration during one of our art camps. We love having teachers come in to give children a different perspective than what we're offering, because that's how you broaden the mind and keep it rich and creative.
Thank you
All right.
so much. Art in the Park, August 8 and 9, October 10, 11. We didn't
Yes.
talk about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for watching.